La Gemara. Today, Sunday's Daf is Daf Chav Vav. So we are continuing to explain the Mishnah. The Mishnah then talks about Shemitah, and the Mishnah said that for a time they made a distinction between Oisvei Shviyas and Soichrei Shviyas. That means that this food of Shemitah you're permitted to eat until Pesach time, but you're not allowed to do any schera and do any retailing with it. Lachem la'achla, for eating and not for schera. And then the Mishnah said that there was other people who were known as Oisvei Shviyas. They gather for Shemitah, but Misharabu Anosim, the people who oppressed them, increased, so they asked the both Oisvei Shviyas and Seicher Shviyas. What exactly is going on here? Says the Gemara, 4 lines from top of Chav Vav. Amar Rav Shimon, in the beginning, first they called them the people, they're just gathering, the fruits and vegetables for Shemitah, and therefore they can eat it. And then at the end, because of the anos and the increase of these oppressors, they decided to ban all. What's going on here? The gatherers as well as those who had made it into merchandise. Maika Amar, what's the Mishnah saying? So first we give one interpretation and then we'll give another. First, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Hachakam. Bitchila, in the beginning, they said, those who are gathering Shemitah are all right, and Seichreim Psulim, but those who sell and deal with them is forbidden. But when they increased that they would give money, when this situation arose, they would give money to the poor, and the poor felt that they have to return, to help them out. So they would gather all the produce and give it to them. Suddenly it looked like it was a business deal. The Osla Ani, the Osla gathered together Maisu and brought it to them. So they decided to say, Echad Zev, Echad Zeb. Those who bought and sold, and those who gathered in are all forbidden because they're really the same. Says the Gemara that the syntax is wrong. Kosher ba b'nei Rechava. If so, the Bnei Rechava asked, Haim b'sherabu anosim. So why did you say when the oppressor wasn't the oppressors? They should have said b'sherabu atagid b'lewen. When more and more people got involved in the selling of this produce. That's the problem. So the Gemara now changes the pshat completely. First they said echad zeb, echad zeb psul. First they said they're all forbidden, whether you're gathering or whether you're selling. Mishirabu anosi, when the oppressors increased, the government, they started levying all these taxes. These taxes, these land taxes and other kind of taxes, and they had to therefore cultivate the land in order to be able to pay the taxes. Rabbi used to proclaim, Puku, go out, V'zara b'shviz, go out and plant in Shemitah, b'shum arnuna, because of the taxes you're permitted. So then the Rabbanan said, in that case, those who are gathering are permitted if they're doing it in order to pay their taxes. But those who are selling it, they are puzzled. The question is, just because you have to pay taxes, how can you do an Isser in the Torah? So some of the Shainis say that it's talking about today when the whole idea of Shemitah is only midrabanan. Shemitah bezman hazeh is drabanan, and therefore they were permitted to do that. Taisa seems to be saying the same thing. Or Taisa is another answer. It's more than just Shemitah bezman hazeh drabanan. It could be Shemitah deraisa, but it's pekuach nefesh. Because if the king wants his taxes and they don't have to pay, who knows, they will be incarcerated and there they will die. And therefore it's a case of a koch nefesh you're allowed to. So it seems that Tosfos itself has, within Tosfos itself, the two answers, whether Shemitah today is a Rabbanan or Deraisa. And in the Rambam itself, there's a number of contradictions whether Shemitah today is a Rabbanan or Deraisa, which is very important, because if it's the Rabbanan, much more relaxed regarding Hetz and Mechira, even though everyone agrees, but at least it's much more relaxed. If it's Mahatorah, then we can't be so lenient. We have to be much more stringent. So, let's think about it further. Gemara tells a story. Rab Chia bar Zarnuki, Rab Shimon ben Yehoitzadek. Maybe now do any schayra, now do any business with Shemitah. So Rab Chia bar Zarnuki, there was two Amoraim, and Rab Shimon ben Yehoitzadek of Gaza. They were going like Abishana Ba'asi. They were going to go ahead and calculate the Ibiyah, the leap year. In Asya is generally Chutzlaritz. We learned before already. You can't do Ibor Shana and Chutzlaritz. What's going on here? So therefore, Traces hold they weren't really going to be Ma'abed Shana, they're going just to make the calculations to determine when is a good time to be Ma'abed Shana. There's some actually want to know that Asa is part of Israel. Anyway, Poga, or parts of it at least. Poga Bode Shlokish met them, eat Tafel Badai. He decided to join them and see how they make the calculations. Obviously, then it cannot be they were going ahead to proclaim a leap year, because you learned before you cannot come unless you're invited. So if Rish Lakish joined them, it must be they're coming really to go ahead and to work out. They're only going to work out to whether in the future there should be a leap year or not. But they said Ezel how they perform, how they go ahead and process this information and they calculate whether it should make a leap year or not. Chazi saw a person if a was digging and plowing the land, he turned to those two and he said, you should reprimand them. Koyin, this person must be a koyin. We'll see more later how do you know that. And the plowing on Shemitah is forbidden. They said right away they try to find the kapschus, and they said maybe Yochel he can say Agisten ani b'teche. I'm working for a non-Jew. He can say that, or another pshat is I am working to pay the taxes. So since he can defend himself, let's assume that's what happened. So again, Chazi saw a person to have a kosach bekarme. They saw a person that was actually kosach bekarme, that he was in a way pruning his vineyard. I'll do that Shemitah. So they said to him, Koyin v'zamer, he must be a Koyin and he's pruning. Amalei said to him, Yochel, he said to him that Yochel Leimer, he can defend himself again and say, La'akil beis habad anitzarech. I'm not doing it to prune the tree. I'm doing it because I need this branch, whatever it is, to help me out with my base habad, my olive press. And even though at the end of the day, his machshav, at the end of the day, the fact is he's pruning the tree, so it must be in a case where he's not benefiting the tree, he's harming the tree. And even though this is his machshava and this is what he wants to do, so therefore his machshava is being carried out. So Taisa explains that machshava is only an issue when it comes to Hilchos Shabbos. But when it comes to Shemitah, it doesn't matter if this is what you intended to do or not. What matters is, are you improving the land or you're not? And since you're not improving the land, there's no breach of Shemitah over here. Anyway, the Shlokish was incensed. He thought that they're constantly being so relaxed and being so tolerant. Amalei said to them, Halev Yedeya. Hashem knows, the heart, you really know, the heart really knows, imla akal, imla calculus. What are they trying to do here? Are they trying actually to subvert the law, or they're just trying to do what you're saying? In other words, even though, I guess there's a big difference between being non-judgmental and accepting. But also more than that, he's saying here sometimes that you have to stand up and reprimand them and stop always looking for ways and saying, and justifying what they're doing. So what I want to know, in the first case, they said that maybe he's working for a goy or paying off taxes. In the second case, they gave a different story where they said that maybe he's using it to fix up his olive press. So when I ask which story is first, because the answer on the first story that he's working for a goy could have been the same answer of the second story. Why did they change? Which incident happened first? Elim Hakamai said first, Amlubadesha said first, and Amalim Magistan Libatecha. Why did you say the same answer? I'm working for a goy or for taxes. This story happened first about the vineyard, and then afterwards they told another story and they came up with that defense. Says the Gemara, how does a shlok know they were coin? So the one because the Chashidei Shvi, from all the people in the world, the one that are most suspect to mistreat Shemitah are the kohenim. It's not a prove it. We learned. So truma, if you have, that truma, if it falls into chulin, it ruins the chulin. It all becomes truma unless it's bottled in 100 times. When it comes to treif, it's bottled b'shishim. When it comes to truma, it is bottled 100 times, and then you go ahead and eat it as if it's chulin. What about so truma shenafel meir social truma? Ta'ala. So then it's bottled. Pachas bekandet. Let's say you have a social falling to 99. It's not bottled. So the entire thing is treated like truma. So the din should be, go ahead and sell it to a coin. Yirkivu, we let it rot. Avinu, we ask, Amai Yirkivu, why let it rot? Im kedenu the coin, sell to a coin, but make truma. Sell to a coin as if it's truma. Okay, you get a little less money, but at least you get something. Why throw it out? Chutz mit me oisa so, except that so. From here on out. We don't want them to be able to have this 99 saw of Shemitah, because we're talking about Shemitah here. We don't let them have this. Why? Because we are scared. So we're talking about over here is that one saw of Truma fell into 99 saw of Shemitah. So therefore now the Shemitah thing is treated like Truma. So let's sell it to a Kohen. The problem is we don't trust the Kohenim. We believe that the Kohenim are going ahead and to eat the Shemitah, and therefore we don't trust them. Now, how can we even sell it? We just said we're going to sell Shemitah. But a one-off thing you're allowed to, is only if you're doing it as a business on a constant basis. and l'chayda Shemitah he can eat, but we don't trust the kohenim that what don't we trust? We don't trust that they're going to consume the food before Pesach. This is man beer. They're going to leave it, they're going to leave it hanging around, and they convince themselves, it's true, and everything is mutter, and so on. Says the Gemara, Amru. So these two said, Trudehu, he's a pest. He's annoying us. This man, Rabbi Shlakish, he's kimotul house when they came finally to the place where they were going to convene and have this discussion. Shlikul el igra. They went up to the upstairs and shoful and they took the ladder away from beneath them, so that Rish Lakish couldn't climb up. Rish Lakish is incensed. These people here, these two rabbis, who I can suspect are not, they treat Shvius very lightly. Shading laba shana. How can they be qualified to make you decide to leap here? Hold on, and then he said, "Look, Kashli, maybe I can explain it." Rish Lakish is going in his mind back and forth. Very interesting. He's saying all this in front of Rabbi Yechanan. Maybe it's like the case we had before, 3 Roy Bakr. And we had a long time ago when we learned that they make these comments about the seasons, that Rabbanan Achush B'nai Yissamech, and the Rabbanan then just relied on their own calculation, and they did their own thing. Hold on, but he said that. So therefore, maybe the same thing here. But then he said, "No, I'm not very happy." Why? He said because Loidomi Hasham Hadud in so they didn't make their own calculations. They weren't really relying on those things. People made their own calculations. Well, this is a group of Rishayim. The Kesher Rishayim ain't a million. You cannot count them as all because there's part of the group who are making a determination. You can't count them at all. The Rish Lakish is really angry. Amar Rabbi said, "Doh, here you went too far. You crossed the red line. Don't call them Rishayim. Just because they were matzdik schus of these other people, don't call them Rishayim." They heard about this. They heard about it. They went to Rabbi Yechon and they complained. He called us Roy Bok. He called the shepherds. He called the shepherds of cattle. He didn't defend us. He didn't in any way, protest or object. If he would call you Roy Yitzhayin even worse than Roy Bok or Yitzhayin, because they constantly wander on other people's and graze on other people's mountains, what can we do? So now we're going to analyze the my kesher d'shayim. What kind of expression is kesher d'shayim? A group of rishayim. So Gemara tells us where we use this word, the origin of this word. Shevna. Shevna was working for Chizkiah HaMelech, but he himself was a very big Talmid Chacham. He used to darshan in front of 130,000 people. Chizkiah, on the other hand, so did Chizkiah darshan for 110,000. So Shevna, how did Chizkiah? Kiyos Sanhedrin, but when Sanhedrin came, the total of Yerushalayim, and he surrounded Yerushalayim, everyone got scared. He came with 180,000 plus soldiers. Cost of Shevna Piskas, so Shevna then wrote ahead a little note, and shot the Begira, and he took his arrow, and this is what he wrote, and he sent an arrow across to Sanhedrin. He wrote the Shevna v'Seyasa Yishlimai, Shevna and his entourage, we're all happy to join you, and Chizkiah Seyasa and his group are not prepared to join you. Remember, it says, they go ahead and take their arrow, their bow, they prepare their arrow al yeset, and they prepare the arrow on the string and they send it off to him. And yes, it also means more. It means he had more people behind him than Chizkiah. How it comes to Chizkiah was frightened. Maybe Hashem will follow the majority. And what? And we should surrender to Sanhedrin. If they all surrendered to Sanhedrin, maybe I should do the same. But Navi came along, Navi said, don't worry about this group here. The Navi Shaya and Chizkiah told them, Kesher the Shaimu. This is a group of the Shaim, but Kesher the Shaim ain't even a minion. They don't count. They have no sway. Halach lachol a cave period. Shevna decided that he's the king, so he went to dig himself a cave in the royal cemetery. Oh, Navi Vamla came Navi to Shevna and said, Malachapoi, what are you doing here? Milachapai, who do you have over here? And now suddenly you're digging your own grave in the royal cemetery. You have no place over here. Hashem will make you wander about together like a man, and not like a woman, because women people might have Rahmanas on, but a man they won't. Amar Rav says Rav to Tula the Gavra Kosher that the wandering of a man is much worse than a woman. Women people have Rahmanas on and not in a man. That's for me. Tula Gavra. Then it says in the pasuk, they'll wrap him around. What do you mean wrap around? He says to Shevna, we're going to be wrapped around. That the tzaras formed around Shevna. It says we find also from Yata, and we find as well by Mitzvah that they cover them out because it surrounds them. Then the pasuk says, "Son of Yisrael, they will wrap you around like a hat, and it will open in a big expanse of land. Tano, who bikish Kolaim Beis Hadon, if he wanted to embarrass and he betrayed his lords. His Laticha Nepa Kvoida, for his own honor turned into shame. What happened was when he left, he tried to betray the Eden, so he went to the camp of the Goyim. Also, Gabriel came along Gabriel, closed the door right behind him in front of his whole entourage. They couldn't come in. So meanwhile, Sanhedrin asked him, tell me the Mishayosech, where's your entourage? Amar must be hard to be, they changed their mind. You promised me a whole group of supporters, and it turned out to be you were mocking me. What they do was they nakvua. They took him nakvua. They took him nakvua bakava. They took him and they punctured his heels with a little bit of the same, and they tied him to the tail of the horses. And they traveled on all these thorns and thistles and so on, and that was his end. Shevna Bal Hanohaya. Shevna is someone that enjoyed life. And Rashi says that more than that, he was Mishkav Zachar, that he was enjoying Mishkav Zachar. Others actually learn in the Goinim just the opposite. Balonava, that he did not keep to himself like Chizkiyahu. He gave Hana to many people because he taught, like we said before, 130,000 people. So he was very sharing and giving. That's why Chizkiyahu was scared that the Shevna was a man of the people far more than Chizkiyahu was. How do I know that he was a Baal Hana? Steve Hocha, here it says, Let go, Boyala Seichen al Shevna. Go to the Seichen Shevna. And so we refer to Shevna as a Seichen. And where do we find the Seichen? We found in Haftarah that we find by David Melch, we just learned more a few days ago as well. And there it says, that Avishag was his Sechenes that made him warm and gave him pleasure. Then the pasuk says, Ki hashosas yehoresim, that if we destroy the hashosas, tzadik mapol, what was the value of the tzadik? So we learn three different pshatim how to understand what David Melch was saying. And this continuation of the pasuk we had before. It says the Gemara, number one says, Ilu Chizkiyahu v'siyasa ne'erasim, if Chizkiyahu and his entourage have been destroyed, tzadik mapol, what did he achieve his whole life? What did he gain if he was destroyed? So tzaddik is referring to Hashem, as Rashi says. What did Hashem pay him? So that's one shot. What does Hashas have to do with that? We'll see in a minute. One says, the base of Mikdash been destroyed. Tzaddik mapol. If the base of Mikdash was destroyed, what did he accomplish? And the base of Mikdash is Hashas is the aeration they destroyed. His Hashas is not talking about the tzaddik, is talking about the base of Mikdash. Is if the thoughts and intent of that Rosh Hashanah is not destroyed, tzaddik mapol. It's tzaddik mapol. So now I'm going to explain. That if Shevna's machshavas weren't demolished, What did Chizkiah do? Heinrich Siv Kahashas is Yaresh. The Shas is referring to his thoughts. He's referring to his thoughts, and therefore we say, okay, we understand what that is. The word Hashas and thoughts. We find it in a pasuk there in Chumash, where by Padai it says Shas Libai. So okay, we find a word similar. Shas is regarding to his thoughts. The one who says that Shas is referring to Beis Hamikdash destroyed. Nami. It's now we learned Eben Ha'is Shon Beis Nevi'im. There was a stone there from the beginning of the Nevi'im. B'Shas Yismoi V'Nikras. It's called B'Shas Ha'is Nikras, referred to as Shasya Eben Shtia, and according to some, it was underneath the Aron. According to others, it's just a rock. Dome with a rock in the middle of the room, and the Aron was a little bit further removed. Three opinions whether it was on the east side of the room, the west side of the room, or right in the epicenter. That's referring to Chizkiah Siyosai. What does Shasas have to do with the tzaddik? Hey, where do you find that tzaddikim are called Shasas? What it says, we actually find the pasuk. It says, "Kil Hashem mitzuki eretz." It says that to the Eibush mitzuki eretz, he had the foundations of this world by Yoshes Aleim table, and he made the world on top of that. So we see by Yoshes is referring to foundations. It's referring to foundations, and which is referring to tzaddikim. The Gemara, as we'll soon see. From here in the following, it says, Hifli Eitza Higdal Tushir, that he had wonderful advice, and Higdal Tushir, and he gave even more advice. So we see that a tzaddik is to do with advice. So either because she is foundations or the beams, and tzaddikim are called beams, or it's which again is tzaddikim. Says the Gemara, Amar Abchana said, Abchana said that the word, that Torah, which is referring to tzaddikim, is referred to as Toshia. What is the connection with the word Toshia and Torah? So he says, why is it called Toshia? The Torah actually weakens the strength of a person. And they bring in a medrash that certain Tanaim couldn't even lift their jackets because they were so weak. Another pshat is that what does it mean? Tushia shenitna b'chashoy. The Torah was given quietly mipnei hasatan, because of the satan. And in the Gemara Shabbos we say that the Malachim said to the Eibush, we want the Torah. Here they were saying that these Malachim were actually the satan. That the satan was the one who wanted the Torah, so it shouldn't go to the Eden. So it'll be interesting. The Gemara is like, and we're talking to the Satan himself. The Satan is right there. We're saying, are you active up in Shemaim? You're active down here. Therefore, we're entitled to the Torah. Another pshat is Tushia Devorim shall tell you words. Words is Torah. It's something tangible, nothing you can really touch, and the world is made up of it. The world is settled on it. So Torah is words. Omar Ula says Ula Machshava, that Machshava, a person is very distraught and he's constantly thinking and he's worried about different things. Let's say about Panosa, it affects affiliative Torah. It affects even the ability and the capacity to learn Torah, to remember Torah. Shenemar, it says that Mefer Machshavas Arumim, that the Arumim, the clever ones, sometimes they can break the Machshava if there's a lack of mezanis. They don't allow them to concentrate on their Torah. But the Rashi here brings an amazing pshat. Rashi here brings amazing pshat. And just before we give Rashi, so let's just finish the Gemara here. Shenemar, it says, made for machshos arumim, is made for machshos arumim v'lo sasena. It says that if you break that, you break the machshavos of the clever ones, and they won't do it, you day into Shia, and the hands become weak. But Rashi says here an amazing thing. The second shot of Rashi, Chavav b'Beis Sanhedrin. Remember that. Remember, we learned Daf Yomi. The whole idea of Daf Yomi is goals. We have a goal every single day to learn a blot, to finish a Masechta at a specific time. 7.5 years, we finish the whole Shas. I'll read what Rashi says here. Rashi is made from Machshavos Arumim. So Rashi says over here, 3 lines into the Rashi. Rashi says here that Lishna Achrina, If a person has a thought, kach v'kach esed. This is what I will do. Kach v'kach tala biyodi. This is what I expect to accomplish. My Ellis, that will help lahash bisadava to make sure it never happens. She'ei machshavtim game. If you set goals, it'll never happen. And he gives an example. I feel about Torah. Keep going. For example, a person says, Ad yoim plainly by this and this day, asayim kach v'kach mesechtes v'girsa. I will learn so many mesechtes, l'girsa, Gemara, Rashi, l'girsa. Just let's say superficially. It'll never happen, says Rashi. Amazing. Rashi says to have a project like Daf Yomi where you fix an amount, how much you learn every single day, how much you're going to cover. It won't happen. Very interesting. Now, so that finishes Gemara. So Gemara says, sorry. So the Gemara says, Mechver machshavos arumim, that he will cancel the machshavos of those smart ones. It will never happen. Yedaim tashir, that the hands will become weak. However, if they are learning l'shem shamayim, then ema ma'elis, then it will not in any way affect your goals. According to Rashi, if you're learning l'shem shamayim, learning daf yomi l'shem shamayim, then your goals will be reached. And it says, Rabbi's machshav belavish, but vatzas Hashem yisakom, which eitzes will continue? The eitzah have Hashem. Eitzes b'dvar Hashem, he talk l'olam. The eitzes we do l'shem shamayim will last forever. But Rabbi Yehuda, we're talking about gambling. Rabbi Yehuda says, Amos, when is gambling a problem? Only if you have no other job. If you have another source of income, then it's not a problem. Then either because you have the wherewithal of what's happening in the world, so therefore you can adjudicate, or like the Rambam said, we're not worried that you're stealing from the money of the gambling because you have an alternative source of revenue. Ablaza says, even though we said before that all these people are disqualified, but it's only after you proclaimed it. And the reason for that is because if you don't, it's not fair for people who will be using them as aidim, have no idea that these people were disqualified. So kula nira achroza bebest roy when it comes to shepherd pligiba. You also have to make an announcement. You don't need an announcement. And now, why not? Once you don't need an announcement, I know, but possibly if we ask him what his profession is, he says he's a shepherd of his own sheep, then he's disqualified. Remember, we learned only his own sheep, not if it's someone else's. But the one that says that you do have to make an announcement, my stam roy apostle. What does it mean when you say stam shepherd is apostle? It is not possible until you make that announcement. Gemara says the of course you have to make an announcement, but without doing any investigations, we will make as soon as we find out that his occupation is he's a shepherd, we'll make an announcement that he's disqualified. But until you make that announcement, he's still valid. Ahim was a gift. Two Gazlani were signing it. He thought, well, since they were it's never been established that they are disqualified, so even though we all know that they're another, maybe it should be valid. So but made the announcement. True, you need a hachroza when it comes to a gazlan drabanan. But the gazlan deraisa, when it comes to a gazlan b'toida, mi be'inin hachroza. Do you actually need hachroza? That you know it's something which is ma'atoida, it's automatically disqualified. Tasha Rosha 8, and therefore we don't really need hachroza. Simen davar arois ganav. Amar nachman. Oichle davar acher. If somebody eats davar acher, generally davar acher is considered pork. But over here we say if somebody eats davar acher, psulin le'edes the apostle edes. If somebody eats davar acher, they are apostle edes. Davar acher, says Rashi, means somebody who accepts tzedakah from non-Jews. If you accept tzedakah from goyim, you are apostle edes. Says the Gemara. Hani mili, but what are the circumstances that we say you're apostle edes? Only b'fehes, if you do it openly. If you do it openly, it's a bazillion that we need to come to people who are not eating to support us. If you do it in a way of circumspect, loy, then it's all right. Also, others say because it's a chil Hashem, and if it's done hiddenly, no chil Hashem. Or with and even if it's openly, you had an option to do discreetly and you didn't. And you're degrading yourself doing this openly. If you had no choice, this is what your livelihood. What should you do? If somebody is suspected of committing a sin of haroyas, kosher edus is kosher edus. I don't understand. He said to his Rav Nachman, Oni Mori, please answer me, teacher. Aboim bekas, when you give him 40 lashes, the kosher is still kosher? Omar Rava, so Rava says yes, that he holds his kosher, except the Moed Rav Nachman lenient edus isha. The only thing that he's disqualified is to give testimony about a woman, who puzzled that it is puzzle. Omar Papa, why? Because we don't trust him. We know that he has a weakness for arayas, so how can you trust his testimony? And Papa said, only if he wants to set her free and release her from her husband. If he says that she's married, which means he has no benefit from it, less lamba, then he is believed in this case over here, even though he commits arayas, but in this case he's harming himself. He made her also. Saying Pshita is not obvious. Mountain, I would have thought Hadifla, he's happier to keep her married because then his because Mayim Genuvi talking stolen waters are much sweeter. He'll enjoy more committing adultery than having a serious relation with her. Kamash Malon, and that's what I'll tell you, the kaima that nevertheless, we say that if she is married, we will trust him because he doesn't really benefit because he doesn't have her that he can't really have her available all the time. Now, what exactly is a choshel aroyis? The machlek is a shayim. Tesa here says choshel al aroyis means suspected of aroyis. Because otherwise, if he actually did the sin, what's the difference if he ate chaza, which we'll see later is disqualified, or if he did aroyis? We'll see in the next few blocks. If you committed a sin, nothing to do with money, stealing money. You're disqualified for being AIDS. Why should Erev be different? So the reason why Erev is different, we're talking about a case where Choshev. We don't know for a fact he's a Veda, just rumors have it. But then Tezek is a second shot. Even if we know a fact he's a Veda, our race is different because people cannot control themselves. Yitzroy Unfei. Says the Gemara further. Ganif Nisan, if somebody stole in the month of Nisan, or Ganav Tishrei, if somebody stole in the month of Tishrei, this is the time when you either harvest the grapes or you harvest the wheat. So you loish meganif. He's not called a ganif, and why not? Why not? She explains. Hani mili ba'arisa. Somebody knows if you think that what you're doing is permitted, then you're not disqualified from being a witness. Now, how can you think that if you steal during the time of the harvest that you're not a ganif? We're talking about arisa. You're a sharecropper, which means you have a share in this thing here, and you're working very hard. And with Dovamud, you're only taking a small amount excess. It's already ready. So you think that you're like a worker, that you're permitted to, you convince yourself that you're permitted to collect, eat food while you're picking the grapes or whatever it is. Or he thinks that the owner wouldn't really care whatever he eats. So he convinces himself he's not doing an avera. Therefore, he's not disqualified from giving aids because he's not a cheater. So you want to further. You had the different sharecroppers of Rav Zvid. You had the different workers of Rav Zvid. So this is what happened. They weren't very happy. So what happened was, one guy, Chad Gan of Kaba, decided, one of them stole a Kaba barley, and he disqualified for it because he's a Ganef. And now talking about small amounts. The Chad Ganav Kibura Dahini, and the other one ended up stealing only a little bit of dates. Again, upasla, he disqualified them. So even though there were small amounts, because this is open Geneva, and therefore he disqualified them. Because they weren't an oris, they weren't a sharecropper. When is a sharecropper? They give us, look, I'm working so hard, I'm entitled to something. These people were not sharecropper, they just stole small amounts. So you're a ganef. If you're open ganef, how can we trust you as an aid? You had these great digger, the covenant said it, they once buried someone on the first day Yom Tov, not allowed to. Second day Yom Tov, not the first day. Shamtinu Rapapa placed in a chedim who pastor is qualified that made us. Came along his friend Bachsherinu Rabhuna Berev. Came along, he said they're all right. What do you mean all right? They committed a Veda bearing on the first day Shavuos. So he said to him, Savri, they hold a mitzvah of the, they believe they did a mitzvah. They did a mitzvah, and therefore, again, they're not crooks. So so Papa said, what do you mean? We put a chelim. Sorry, they thought, on the one hand, we need to do the mitzvah of burying the person on the first day Yom Tov, and at the same time, we're doing an Aveda, so we need a kapar for that. Sorry, kapar. We find the same precedent by if somebody has a nightmare on Friday night, we tell him that on Shabbos he should fast. But then he needs to fast on Sunday to be mechaper on Shabbos. So you see, you're fasting on Shabbos because we told you to fast on Shabbos. And then you have to have a kapara for that. So same thing here. He thinks they're doing a mitzvah by burying the first day Yom Tov, and then they need a kapara for actually burying the first day Yom Tov, but they did nothing wrong. So they're disqualified from being a witness. Stop over here. See you tomorrow on Mitzvah Shem.